my work in sort of the what I call food activism space, where I'm seeding up and funding a lot of these companies that I feel can help with our health and with the environment as well, which is something that we have to think about.
Well, it's interesting because I think about how food, soul food in particular, was prepared when I was growing up. And for
Hmm.
that matter, on a weekly basis, like what my mother cooked or my grandmother, it's like, it's a miracle I made it to 25. It's like, there is a difference, I think. Um, I would say famous.
So I know one of the most irksome things about my personality that gets to people is like what they deem as this like false sense of modest. It's like somewhere between the ultimate humble bragger and a false sense of modesty thing. Um, but for the first, I will say that I'm really glad that we got on the journey that we're on. Like no one's still slowly rising up 30 years into their career. Um, Whereas, oftentimes I would ask, like, yo, okay, if you guys, if we had a chance to either do the path we're on right now, or we could take the Fuji's path and buy our second album, sell 16 million units, and then maybe follow up with another 10 million seller and then implode, or Outcast, go diamond and da da da, win album of the year. Like, which option would you choose? And in the beginning, it was like, wow, well, if I sell 16 million, then maybe I could do something different. Like everyone has their thing where they like do this proverbial reimagining of like Scarface, and then the last 5 minutes of that film they'll change the difference, and then they'll get out alive and that sort of thing. But I think with us, I'm glad we took this tortoise and the hare journey. So that said, for every moment of wow, I made it, there's always a counterbalance, like you ain't shit moment that happens. Like I've been in situations where like I'll arrive to a certain nightclub with like my bag in hand. Where you going, boss? I'm spinning. Dave is expecting me. No, private party. Yeah, I'm Questlove, and you are like that whole Saturday Night Live, like, and you hang on one second, and you don't know this guy is, this guy's a legend, it's Questlove. No, no, no. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's ever a moment where I felt like I've reached the finish line and did that sort of thing. Because even
Feeling
even when
famous,
we won our Grammy.
though, feeling famous is not about the finish line. It's that, and I know it's a weird thing to admit to. It's like I felt famous, for example, the first time I went to the White House. And yes, I did say first time. It's like the first time I went to
Right,
the White
right, right.
House, and President Obama knew who I was. I was like, oh my God. Because I have a whole
Buddy.
introduction in my mind of like, this is what
Mhm.
I'm gonna say, this and that. And he was like, oh yeah, from my morning show that like when you said this, and when the president is telling you what you said on sports television, you're just like, wait, what?
Right,
Like I had that moment that you had with Prince. So I
right.
know you had to have other than Prince, maybe.
Okay, there was a moment. There's a moment I felt lucky and fortunate, and I don't know if that means famous, but I'll go with it with air quotes. It's 1994, and we're at a music convention, and the woman that's running it, the woman that invented Black Music Month, her name is Deanna Williams, Philadelphia legend, personality legend. Um, she's having this event called I Am. I think it's acronym for International African American Association of Music. I Am. Um, and they're honoring Stevie Wonder this year. And we were invited. Stevie was having a soiree in his suite, and I'm realizing now this is a quote, a very Stevie Wonder thing to do. Stevie Wonder, even after concerts, he'll often hold court or he'll socialize by always having a piano with him. And then he just becomes his own playlist, his own like his own playlist. And so, we're in Stevie Wonder's suite, and there's about 40 of us. I do remember at the time Natalie Cole was there, and her husband at the time was Andre Fisher. He was the original drummer in Rufus featuring Shaka Khan. And his uncle's world famous, Claire Fisher, and he's like a orchestral genius. Like Prince has worked on his albums. He's worked on Prince's albums and all that stuff. So I was kind of nerding out on Andre Fisher and Natalie Cole. That's the first time like nerded out on somebody. And I think they were kind of elated, like, oh, one of these young kids knows like our history and all that stuff. And meanwhile, Stevie Wonder is in the living room of his suite at a grand piano, holding court. It's about 20 women surrounded by the piano. And he's literally going through like his entire catalog. Like it was a 3-hour performance where he's just singing like "You Got It Back, Girl" and "Blame It on the Sun" behind you, while Natalie Cole's telling me campfire stories about the 70s and all those things I ever wanted to know. So that was a night where it's like, oh, this didn't happen before we had a record deal. So that's where I felt like, oh, that's cool.
Two quick questions before we get to the rapid fire game that I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest, complete these two sentences. The greatest era of music is.
Why are you doing this to me?
Because it's all love. It's strictly out of love.
Okay, I believe. See, here's the thing, because I have like a divided system whenever I answer this question. For instance, like in my eyes, 1991 was an awesome year for hip hop, but it was a sucky year for kind of the music acts that I liked. You know what I mean? So if I'm trying to find the one year in which all the stars aligned as far as the world of hip hop and the world of like the R&B, pop, whatever, like the rest of the genres, I will say that even though 1988 is my go-to bragging year for the year that hip hop just revealed itself to me, I also think that when you're 17, you're just wide open for whatever is coming your way. But I'll say that 1987 was probably the year that all the stars aligned, because it's like, Rebel Without a Pause by Public Enemy changed my life. Criminal Minded changed my life. Prince's Sign of the Times changed my life. I was I was there for, for Michael Jackson's unveiling of the Bad album. So I'll say that probably for me, 87 was the one year in which my hip hop side and my non hip hop side made satisfactory music. But any other year, it's like it's always off.
The one genre of food you could eat every day for the rest of your life is.
I see. I'm trying to invest in that right now, because the thing is that, yes, I here's the thing. I have a very problematic relationship with soul food. And it wasn't until like five years ago I started to realize, I was like, wait a minute, this is violence. Like, I'm embracing something that was forced on me. And of course, because of the genius of cleaning it up and making it palatable for our system. But really, is it, being as though we're dying of it? And not to mention, I'm currently suffering through it. And, at the time I was 400 plus pounds. You know what I mean? So it's like the one thing that was used against me, in a form of violence, which, is kind of, the leftover foods that, everyone should know the history of how soul food came to us. Um, and so I think 5 years ago, I started to just out loud question, like, how can I change the narrative of soul food? So yes, my answer is soul food, but I'm currently um, in the space right now in the food world where I'm trying to um, change that conversation and figure out healthier alternative ways to get that enjoyment without it killing us. Um, and that's a hard thing to do, being as though, people often associate healthier foods with non-accessible, too expensive, and not really tasty at all. So, pretty much I'm at the very beginning of my work in sort of the what I call food activism space, where I'm seeding up and funding a lot of these companies that I feel can help with our health and with the environment as well, which is something that we have to think about.
Well, it's interesting because I think about how food, soul food in particular, was prepared when I was growing up. And for
Hmm.
that matter, on a weekly basis, like what my mother cooked or my grandmother, it's like, it's a miracle I made it to 25. It's like,
Yeah, it's that tradition, and that's the thing. That's the thing that I think. Um, I made an observation once, and then I realized it kind of backfired. I was at a I was in DC having breakfast with a friend, and she opted for um she opted for like home fries instead of the grits. And I was mocking judging her, but then I thought, like, wait a minute, is this how I relate? Am I using soul food as a way to sort of vicarious or make up for kind of that the family memory that I don't have anymore? There was a point where every soul food at grandma's house always started on Saturdays, which starts my soul train. Like, starting with Soul Train coming on at Saturdays, that's when my grandmom and my aunts are preparing the Sunday. Every week was Thanksgiving. So I started questioning, like, am I embracing it because is this me holding on to my blackness as I get more successful? Is this me, trying to overcompensate for a family structure, that sort of thing? And I realized that. So I felt bad for judging her at the time, like, oh, you're not eating grits, so you're selling out now, like you're soft. But I will say that, for me, I want to change that conversation.